Hello, everyone, and welcome to Alpha Omega's Spring Revival Virtual Tasting Experience. My name is Barrett Spiegel, and I'm the virtual ambassador here at Alpha Omega, and I'm going to be your moderator for our virtual tasting today. As moderator, I have one request, and that is that you keep your microphones on mute throughout the duration of our tasting. We do want to interact with you. We'd love to answer your questions, your comments. And we're going to do that through the chat box that is located at the bottom of the Zoom meeting window. And I will be moderating that chat box, and we will do our best to address all the questions and comments that you all have. Absolutely stunning day here in Napa. As you can see, spring has officially sprung here in Napa Valley, and we are celebrating not only the beginning of the 2021 growing season, but we're also happy to share with you all that Napa County has moved into the less restrictive orange tier. And basically what that means for us right now is that we are now able to offer indoor private tastings here at Alpha Omega Winery. A lot of the other businesses, restaurants, and shops in Napa are also opening up more. And we're just thrilled to not only celebrate spring, but also celebrate a new sense of energy that's come into Napa Valley. So if you're working on planning trips to come and visit us, if you're thinking about planning something here in Napa Valley, get on that right now, because I know a lot of people are doing the same thing. And as always, reach out to us and let us know how we can help set up your trip to Napa Valley and Alpha Omega. This is an exciting time for us here. Today, we're celebrating this spring revival with two delicious wines today, two wines that were released in our March Wine Club allocation, our 1155 Reserve Sauvignon Blanc, the 2019 vintage, and a library wine, our 2014 Cabernet Sauvignon. Might be my favorite wine club allocation for the year. So these wines are going to be a lot of fun to share and discuss with you all. We also have a special food demonstration for you all today. Special guest, Culinary Institute of America chef Rebecca Peizer is joining us today for a food demonstration. And Master Sommelier Bob Bath has put together an incredible pairing with Rebecca that we're looking forward to sharing with you all. So excited that you guys took time out of your Saturday to join us today to celebrate spring. And as always, we've put together an all-star cast and crew to taste and discuss these wines with you all today. Joining me here on our crush pad overlooking Pritchard Hill in the Rutherford appellation, we have Alpha Omega winemaker Henrik Poulsen, Master Sommelier Bob Bath is joining us as well. And as always, my friends, joining us remotely, special guests, our incredible vintners, Robin and Michelle Baggett, joining us from Pebble Beach. Robin and Michelle, how are you?
We're doing great, and thank you all. You forgot to mention it's Master Saturday, and they're just started playing at 12 o'clock. We'll tape it.
So, guys, spring is such a special time when things are coming to life in Napa Valley, and we're so happy so many of you are coming to visit us. We're trying to accommodate everyone. We love you guys. Our team is so amazing, and I'm so grateful that we're all back together again. I want to give a shout out to Chris Devon. I love your spring decor in the background. Woo, that is fabulous. Oh, it's so amazing. April in California is Wine Down to Earth Month. It's an annual celebration of the wine community's dedication to protecting the land, the communities, and the wine industry for our future generations, and for your kids when they get your wine cellar. It's in 2017, I talked about all of the botanists were just so excited when things began to come out of the ground that had been germinating for decades, and the fire brought a whole renewal of beautiful plants to Napa Valley and those burned areas. It was the only beautiful thing about that, those fires. Well, it's happened in 2020 again, and there's so many beautiful seeds and hidden plants and flowers that have been hidden in the earth for so long. And so the beauty of the renewal of this land that was burnt that is coming back to life when these seeds have now been germinated is just pretty incredible. So if you can come to Napa, put some wine time on your list, but also put some hike time on your list and go. We have so many beautiful public lands in the Land Trust, which is a board that Robin sits on. They have these beautiful walks and hikes. So I highly recommend that you enjoy wine in Napa, but just enjoy everything that's beautiful and scenic that's Napa Valley. Robin's on the board of the Wine Institute, which created Down to Earth Month and is now in its 10th year. And we're going to get into talking about some of our green sustainability land and winery, which I have to give out a shout out to my director of communications, Kelly Carter, who worked fearlessly and for months to make sure that we got our recertification for Napa Green Winery and Napa Green Land. And it's a ton of work. It's a ton of bureaucratic stuff that goes on to make this happen. And I want to say hats off to you, Kelly, for taking the lead on getting our green sustainability.
Yeah, because we are double Napa Green. We're both certified for the winery and for the land, which is two separate programs. In addition, you probably all know, though, when you come to Alpha Omega, those arrays that give you shade in the parking lot, we have 5 of those, and above them is all solar. And we're now at 80 to 90% of all our energy comes from the solar. And more recently, I've learned more than I need to know about stormwater runoff. But right next to us is Bale Slough, and that runs right into the Napa River, which dumps into the Carquinez Straits and then out to the Pacific Ocean. So we don't want to be putting anything in that slough that would be harmful to the environment. And we've come up with a program, we're almost certified on that. So we're doing everything we can to leave this world in a better place than we found it. And I want to say, is Valerie Spiegel, is that your mom, Barrett?
That's Val
Yes.
Spiegel, Val and Todd. Those are my parents are on.
They must be down in Palm Springs or in Arizona because they got a fan on.
They're in outside of Phoenix, Arizona. So they never miss a virtual tasting, boss. They love it.
Yeah. What is it, like 101 there?
Yeah. It's toasty down there, I'm sure. And but that's why we sent them a delicious bottle of 1155 to keep them refreshed in the warm months in Phoenix. But
I hope you paid for it.
I can't confirm or deny that, boss. But going back to this Napa Green initiative and really celebrating the Earth Month here in April. I mean, Rutherford, first AVA in Napa Valley to have 100% participation in the Napa Green Land Program. Obviously now certified in the winery as well. If you're curious about more information on Napa Green, go to napagreen.org and check that out. Henrik, Bob, just to kind of bounce it over to you guys, the importance of not only producing great wines, but sustainability in the long term, in the end, is going to help us produce greater wines with taking care of the land.
No, absolutely. I mean, it all comes from the land. So whatever we bring in at the winery in form of grapes, better grapes out in the vineyards translates automatically into better wines in the bottle. So I do want to tie it back to something that Robin mentioned briefly about this certification that we at excuse me, at Alpha Omega has been doing. So this is actually not a recent project. This ties back to my first venture with Alpha Omega back in 2010. When we applied for this fish-friendly farming program. And we actually we went a little bit above that level. So when Robin mentioned the Bale Slough, which is a creek that runs along our property, we actually were one of the first wineries in the Napa Valley that went in and deliberately tried to redo the plantation that we had in that creek. So instead of having investive native growth there, we actually wanted to bring some real native plants that have been there for centuries. So we invested a lot of time and money in that project, and I think that goes to show that our commitment to keeping Mother Nature as healthy as possible, that is absolutely key to also making some good wines in the cellar. So yeah, again, commitment to nature. There you have it.
Yeah, Henrik, and I think that commitment is kind of the key word here, because first of all, when you see what's happened, I think in the Napa Valley, is that there's just more of an awareness now in terms of what we need to do, preserve essentially what is a monoculture. There's an awful lot of grapes here in the Napa Valley, so we have to protect this very precious resource we have. And I think there's a couple things about this program when you're sustainable, and certainly this Napa Green, this is now covering almost 80% of the vineyards here in the Napa Valley, which I think is a huge accomplishment. It shows how far we've come in maybe just the last 20 years. But the other thing to remember too about this is that this is a third-party certification. We're not doing it. We have people come in and do this. So again, these standards are very high, and they include not only this water conservation procedures, but they include things like, again, the solar power, your gas or greenhouse gas emissions, your carbon footprint, even how you handle your employees, which is part of the winery certification. It's a very all-inclusive program. And on top of that, this is something we have to recertify, which we just went through here. So this is not a one and done. This is a process that to me is a philosophy that you see the entire Napa Valley kind of embracing. And we actually here in Napa Valley represent about 40% of that entire sustainable certification program in the whole state. So we're definitely leading the way in terms of this. But Henrik, I think the other thing too is interesting is that healthier vines actually make for better fruit, maybe even more fruit, right?
Spot on, Bob, as always. And I think it's worth mentioning as well that this Napa Green program that we're part of, it's actually one of only 4 nationwide programs. So it's not commonly acceptable or accepted out there. And I think that goes to show how much Napa is actually on the forefront of being environmentally friendly. I don't want to. We shouldn't get too geeky on the different programs that we implement, but I think it's important to differentiate between conventional farming, sustainable farming, organic farming, and then biodynamic farming. So lots of differences in between those. And what we've done at Alpha Omega is we want to sustainable farm our vineyards, but we're doing it with an organic approach. We're not technically certified organic at this point, but there's no pesticides, no herbicides being spread in the vineyards that we farm under our control. So that's a matter of, again, playing it back and paying it back to nature.
Love it. Love it. Absolutely. And I mean, it's such a pleasure to not only enjoy delicious wines handcrafted here at Alpha Omega, but know that we're producing them in a sustainable way to prepare for the future. And I mean, that all starts at the top with our vintners, Robin and Michelle, and the trickle down philosophy of sustainability. And it's April, it's Earth Month, and it's California Wines Down Month. So we're going to celebrate that today with you all. I mean, we've got a lot. We've got other things to celebrate as well. We've got guests joining us from all over the country. Eileen from Tucson. We've got the McCaffreys joining us from Napa and New Jersey, and they're celebrating their dad's 85th birthday with us today. Happy birthday, 85, and feeling alive. I love it. We've got the Martins from Detroit, Michigan with us, and some of our favorite people as well. Jerry Hayes coming from Washington, D.C., and we're going to have some fun with you guys today. Thank you for letting us know where you're coming from. We've got Diane from Birmingham, Alabama. Love it. All right. Well, guys, I'm getting parched knowing that we have 2 of my favorite wines to taste and discuss today. If you've joined us for our virtual tastings before, you know how much we love trivia, and we love giving out big bottles of wine for some reason. We like to party here at Alpha Omega. We've got a couple trivia questions here today that our vintners, Robin and Michelle, have put together. And let me just say this. You got to comment the answer on the chat box at the bottom of the screen. Let's try to be as civil as possible. We're not trying to tear each other's heads off here, okay? But first person to answer trivia correctly, okay, is going to get a magnum of the 2014 Library Cabernet Sauvignon, okay? We're going big. Is that okay with you, boss?
Hey, that's
Yeah, it's
great.
good.
And guys, I just wanted to let you know that I kind of told everybody for trivia that we're going to focus on what is happening in the vineyards. And it's spring, and spring is sprung, and things are happening. So Robin's going to give you, this is wine education 101, okay?
Well, I got to start with, that was over my objection because a lot of good things happened in baseball yesterday. And that's what I wanted to do. And I don't know if you guys have followed baseball. Yesterday was a special day for the Padres. They had their first no-hitter. Joe Musgrave did it. And that's the first in franchise history, if you can believe that. They've been around for at least 50 years. And they set a record. They're the team that took the longest to have a no-hitter in their franchise history. But what's kind of cool, the catcher, Victor Carantina, he actually caught the prior no-hitter when he was with the Cubs last September. So that made him the only catcher to catch kind of back-to-back no-hitters in Major League history for a different team, because there's been 10 catchers who caught back-to-back no-hitters. And the trivia question was going to be, who was the only catcher in Cal Poly history to catch 2 no-hitters and they were back-to-back? And we know the answer to that one, right? So anyway, okay, I'm changing subject.
Someone got it.
Michelle wouldn't let me do that. Wasn't the trivia question. So that we're going to focus on the growing season of grapes. So put your mindset in that area. So, growing season, we have a vine and the vine does ABC. So the first question is what do we get after bud break?
What happens after bud break?
Or stated differently.
There you go. Trivia 1. What
Yin and
happens
yang.
after bud break in the grape growing process? We're getting some answers coming in now. Submit them in the chat box, my friends. And yeah, we'll analyze those as they come in and let you guys know who the winner is here in a bit. That's a great question. I mean, Cal Poly trivia, that was a lock. Robin Baggett caught 2 no-hitters at Cal Poly. Incredible.
But there were 2 years. So it's my junior year and my senior year.
So someone said real quick after the bud break that the answer is a shot of bourbon. I like that. That's gonna win. But I like that. So we're getting more answers coming in. Again, what do we get in the grape growing process? What happens after bud break? What's the next step in that process? Great question. And we'll announce the winner here in a bit. But we've got to get into this first wine, guys. This is one of probably our most popular wines, I would say, here at Alpha Omega. Very anticipated release every year for this 1155 Reserve Sauvignon Blanc. Not only because it's absolutely delicious, because this wine flies. This wine is released and it's gone in a month or 2. So very excited to share this with you all today. Henrik Poulsen, Bob Bath, our 1155 2019 Sauvignon Blanc.
Well, I think I'll kick this off because if grapes had a resume, I think Sauvignon Blanc would have the most impressive resume out there. And why do I say that? Well, first of all, it's one of the parents of Cabernet Sauvignon, so it has great lineage. Second of all, think about Sauvignon Blanc. You can have it dry versions, you can have sweet versions of it, you can have it with oak, you can have it without oak. It has this wonderful fruit component. It ages magnificently. It blends well with other grapes. There's not a lot of other grapes that kind of can say that in terms of that. So I love this about Sauvignon Blanc because it's really a very versatile grape. Maybe can't make the best sparkling wine, but that's really about the only thing it can't do. But really what we have today is really kind of a really interesting version of this Sauvignon Blanc. And you can see, first of all, we have it in kind of the classic kind of wine taster. We call this a Sauvignon Blanc glass, as a matter of fact. So a smaller glass, probably better. temperature wise, don't go too cold on it. As a matter of fact, I think a little bit of warmth here, maybe not quite as warm as your Chardonnays, but just a little bit of warmth here is important because the style of this is a little bit more Chardonnay-like in that we do some barrel fermentation with this. So some of the same processes there. We actually even blend a little bit of Sauvignon Semillon in with this. And Henrik, this Semillon, even though there's only 5% in it, it actually makes quite a contribution, doesn't it?
No, absolutely it does. And I think for me, again, to your point, Bob, Sauvignon Blanc, it's for me, it wasn't really a serious varietal in Napa until recently. I would say probably over the last 10 years or so, we've seen a new tradition for Sauvignon Blanc. And it's not that we're trying to reinvent the wheel here, but we're trying to really give the respect to the grape that it deserves. Needless to say, if we track it back, as you mentioned, Bob, the heritage of Sauvignon Blanc, I mean, some of the biggest white wines coming out of Bordeaux is made on Sauvignon Blanc, Muscadel, and Semillon. So when we came up at Alpha Omega with the concept of making this 1155, which is a special version of our regular Sauvignon Blanc, it was simply with the intent of making something that really, really stood out. I think sometimes people have a tendency to link a price point into the quality of the wine. And that's actually a shame, because what always is a key factor is the importance of, or actually the difficulties of making a good white wine. I've said this numerous times, that it takes more skills to craft a good white wine than it does to make a decent red wine. And I stand by that every day. Because I think if you have the white wine varietals, when you bring in that fruit, you have to be extra careful. You have to be extra precise in your winemaking protocols. So a slight hint of oxidation, that's going to show up as a browning of the wine. But with this wine, if we go to the utmost care of making it a very, very special wine. And to your point, Bob, about the oak aging on this, we do actually bring it up in a little bit of a mix between stainless steel fermentation. That can be very small tanks up to a full-size winery tank, which is 1,500 gallons. And then we also bring a lot of different cooperages into it. And cooperages or barrels, if you like, that can span the bandwidth with either new oak. It can be from certain parts of France where you have a different impact of the oak. So again, it's a wine that on the face, it looks super simple to make, but it actually is one of the wines that takes us the most time and the most skills to put together. And I'm glad, Bob, that you acknowledged that in your first comments.
Well, Henrik, and again, when you look at Sauvignon Blanc, and particularly, I think, stylistically around the world, we have New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc and Chilean Sauvignon Blanc, and I think those perhaps have a little bit more of that herbaceous character. They have probably more stainless steel fermentation, yet there's so much more that you can get out of these wines in terms of blending other grapes in or adding this oak component. So I love the citrus fruit character, the aromas, and even some of the tree fruit, this wonderful kind of peaches and green apples and even for me, apples, more the green apples probably that you have in this wine. But then you have some other characteristics that really come from really kind of this barrel fermentation. And I love the complexity of these wines. But again, these vineyards, Sauvignon Blanc, as Henrik mentioned, there's not that much of it planted. We're fortunate to have one of our older properties right here in front of the winery, and that's where it gets its name, 1155. It's really one of our oldest vineyards, and we have some other vineyards down in Yountville also, but pretty much we like cooler climates for this, don't we, Henrik?
Yeah, and I think one of the key factors to really understanding the quality that goes into this Sauvignon Blanc is the front side or the front vineyard that we have bordering Highway 29, just in front of the tasting room. So when we took over this property back in 2006 and started out Alpha Omega, we took an internal look at the vineyards here, and everybody was advising us to actually graft or replant that front block into Cabernet Sauvignon, because Anybody knows Cabernet Sauvignon in Napa is king. However, we did some soil studies of that specific front block, and it turned out that the soil composition actually has a very, very high content of clay. And since we are right next to this Bale Slough, the creek that runs along our property, that retains a lot of moisture in the subsoils. And by doing that, we could actually allow ourselves to almost dry farm this block. And needless to say that unless you have to really irrigate your vineyards, you prefer to dry farm them, because that really brings out the aromatics, the intensity of the grapes. And the block was planted back in 1993. So by Napa standards, a fairly old block by now. And we unfortunately also see it, however, only in quantities. So the quality is keep going up year after year after year. Unfortunately, our tonnage is going downwards. And so at some point, we unfortunately will need to pull those vines, but I can assure you we were gonna replant it to Sauvignon Blanc and the same clone as we currently have, because it's just a magnificent spot to grow Sauvignon Blanc.
Yeah, there's something special about enjoying this wine from our home estate 1155 vineyard. And to your point, tiny block of vineyards right in front of our terrace and fountains at Alpha Omega. I'm sure if you, all of you that have come and visited us have seen that block of vines off the 29 there. And I mean, Henrik, this wine, even though it does have a lot of aromas on the nose, it doesn't really have an abrasive amount of fruit top to bottom. I mean, we're getting a lot of guests that are saying here, it's smooth, it's balanced, it's kind of has a creaminess to it, different than a lot of other Sauvignon Blancs from around the country. And not too much of anything, but just well balanced. I mean, this has a lot of depth for a Sauvignon Blanc.
Well, again, back to my starting point, I think this is not just your average Sauvignon Blanc. This is really a serious wine. Again, I think the price point kind of lies about its quality, because we take again very much time and detail to craft this wine. And I think when you start out with a vineyard that is per age is so low in yields, it simply has to craft or concentrate these aromas into the berries. When we then have still on site also planted a new tiny little block of Semillon, then you end up with two blending varietals that is perfectly suited for each other. Bring into the mix that you bring it up in partly in oak barrels, and then, mind-boggling as it should be, we don't release this wine as soon as we bottle it. Normally in Napa Valley, Sauvignon Blanc is a quick turnover. It's a wine that is bottled in March, April of the following year after harvest. We actually hold this back, particularly because we want to show people how developed a Sauvignon Blanc can be with age. So this was recently released in a wine club shipment in March. We bottled it over a year ago. So there's a reason to the madness. We simply keep this because we're super proud of it in the winemaking department.
Yeah, Henrik, I completely agree about the ageability too of Sauvignon Blanc. It's way underrated. I've had some great classic aged Sauvignon Blancs, particularly the white Bordeaux style. And the other thing too is that richness that Barrett was talking about is here, but then you still have that underlying acidity, that kind of grapefruit taste that you're getting on the palate. To me, that is really the secret of Sauvignon Blanc and why it goes so well with so many different types of food. And I think you'll see that particularly today with the dish that Chef Peizer came up with. It's really, for me, food-wise, one of the great food wines of the world.
Cannot wait to see what this food pairing entails. We'll get into that in a second here, but just yes, Michelle.
So, you know, this Sauvignon Blanc is amazing. People that love Chardonnay and don't like Sauvignon Blanc fall in love with this Sauvignon Blanc just because of the wonderful methods of handcrafting this wine that our winemakers choose to do. But we thought it would be fun. Actually, it was actually just we're moving and we've got boxes and wine boxes all in our garage. And I thought, you know what would be fun? Let me just randomly pull a Sauv Blanc out of a box. I grabbed a 2016 Sauvignon Blanc.
Unbelievable.
This is one of the greatest Sauvignon Blancs I've ever had in my lifetime. It has stood the test of time. I wish I had some older vintages. It's amazing that a Sauvignon Blanc can hold up for so long, but it's just this incredible winemaking team and this production of this wine. It sells out really fast. I normally buy all the Chardonnay at first, but I'm a new Sauvignon Blanc fan, and having it age is just incredible.
And by the way, anybody who wants to come by and help us unpack, they're welcome.
Me, would love to. That's great. That's awesome. Thank you for diving into the cellar to kind of check in on what aged 1155 Sauvignon Blanc is gonna taste like. That is great to hear. I mean, and I think that really is, Henrik and Bob, the MO of Alpha Omega is handcrafting wines in the vineyard and in the cellar to be accessible at a young age. This isn't going to last long in my cellar, personally. But
just real quick, I didn't know Michelle loved it that much because we didn't prep this, but I was here a little early and I was talking to Bob and Henrik about this, and I tasted it and I said, this is unbelievable. And so, yeah, independently, we both got the same conclusion. So that's great.
Awesome. Great to hear. I mean, you know, the 2016 1155 holding up very well. 2019 just released. Again, can't stress this enough. This wine flies. Stock up on this while you can. Perfect wine for the summer. Really just the amount of depth and complexity in this Sauvignon Blanc. This is a year-long enjoyable wine. But I mean, the 19 vintage, Henrik, I'm going to send it your way. We're going to dive into the 19s here, and excited to pour some of these delicious single vineyard cabs from the vintage, coming off a stellar 18 vintage as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Mother Nature has been very kind to Napa, at least with the 2018 and 2019 vintages. So again, I think to Robin and Michelle's point here about the 2016 being such a stunning wine at this point, it all ties back to what we started this segment with, the land, the quality of the fruits, the grapes that we're growing out there, and how we treat it. So with this vineyard, I mean, you just have the best of the best, and I think that again, it shows that Cab is definitely a quality grape in Napa, no doubt about it. But I also think that there's other varietals out there that definitely needs that center stage. And people's acceptance and fascination. So yeah, we are super proud when we craft these white wines, and we don't, unfortunately, we do not have a lot of it. So this front block that we're talking about, the 1155 estate block, that's just 3.7 acres, and then the Semillon component that we have, that is 0.3 acres. So in all total, it's 4 acres. If you do the math, we estimate 4 tons to the acre. That's a very high estimate on whites. Then you end up with 16 tons of grapes. Normally you double that, so you have 32 barrels. Then you calculate that with 25 cases per barrel. That ends up with 800 cases, if my math is correct. And that's a drop in the bucket when we have loyal fans out there that rips it out of our hands. But I wish we could make more. We're trying. We will replant that block at some point. But it's a privilege as a winemaker to be able to have access to this kind of quality fruit.
Great point. I mean, quality over quantity is always been the approach for Alpha Omega, and that's what happens when you make delicious wines, Henrik, you and your team, and then Joel Antonio, our vineyard manager, and his team, and really taking care of the vineyards that we farm here at Alpha Omega to enjoy such a great wine. Our guests, guys, are really enjoying this. Chrissy's saying this wine's delicious. The Madonnas are just blown away by the kind of the creaminess on the palate that they get, which kind of surprised them, Bob, based off the aromas that they also got. I mean, to get those fresh aromas and that fresh acidity, like you mentioned, but also a creaminess, that hits the sweet spot right there.
You know, it does. And again, it comes back to the fact that this is a wine that drinks good, young and old. And so there's a lot of wines, and I think particularly red wines, perhaps we want to wait a little bit longer, like we'll see in the Cabernet Sauvignon here in a little while. But really, Sauvignon Blanc has that ability to really show dramatically well just here at 2 years of age, and yet even with 5 years, even with 10 years of age. So really, it's kind of when do you want to have it? The question is having enough of it that you can really enjoy it over that period of time, because this is definitely a wine that's beautiful right now. That richness of texture, I think, is something that you don't necessarily find in all Sauvignon Blanc.
Awesome. Quick question here from Derek on percentages, because there is a little bit of Semillon in this wine. What percentage, Henrik, of Sauvignon Blanc is in the 1155 on the 2019?
So I think from memory, I believe we blended 5% of Semillon from the front part of our estate into the 95% of Sauvignon Blanc. It all depends on vintage. So like I always say, there's no recipe for the wines that we're making here or crafting at Alpha Omega. It depends on what Mother Nature gives us, the vintage, the growing season on hand. But I think the blend is 95% Sauvignon Blanc and 5% Semillon.
Lovely, lovely. Thank you. Well, I know you guys are all enjoying this wine, and I can't stop thinking, Bob, about this pairing that you've put together with Chef Rebecca Peizer from the Culinary Institute of America, the 1155 Sauvignon Blanc. And what are we pairing with this today?
Well, we've got this wonderful kind of goat cheese raviolo, as a matter of fact. We'll be talking about it here in just a minute. And it's got a wonderful beurre blanc sauce and a little hazelnut gremolata. And I think the complexity you'll see is that we kind of started with some classic components and we built on that because we had so much to work with the wine. And I love that when you can really kind of match the complexity of the wine and the complexity of the dish. And that's definitely where we got today with this.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, let's check in with Chef and see what's going on over here. Chef Rebecca, how are you today?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Good, good.
Nice to be here. It's a beautiful day.
Amazing.
Hi, Bob.
Hi, how are you, Chef?
I'm great. Thank you.
Thank you. We've had so much fun doing this. And I think more than anything, it's really, it's an inspiring wine, but I know you've got a new venture going on for yourself, right? At Grey Haven. Tell us a little bit about this project.
I do. This is a rehabilitation facility for adults that need some help being integrated back into society. And I think we need a lot more of that in the world. And Napa is a really great place to be if you are someone in the mental health and sort of beneficial to society kind of place. We have a lot of fundraising going on here for all sorts of projects. And this has been a wonderful project to be a part of. And I'm the culinary director. So I'll be teaching the folks who are there how to do basic cooking skills as well as feeding them.
That's such a wonderful project.
It's
inspirational. And,
thank you.
You know, this is an inspirational day too. You can see how gorgeous it is here. And
Not bad.
We've got an incredible recipe today. By the way, this recipe is available on the website. And it's something that if you're not doing it today, you can do it in the future. But really, we start with the Sauvignon Blanc. We've actually done a few twists to it where maybe you can even integrate with the Cabernet Sauvignon too. But
yeah,
we've got a goat cheese raviolo. Let's talk about raviolo first.
well, raviolo versus a ravioli. Ravioli is a small version and the raviolo is a larger version. And so what we're going to do is make a very large size single portion raviolo, and it's going to be stuffed with an egg yolk. And the egg yolk, once we cook this beautiful raviolo, is going to be poached. And so it acts a little bit like the sauce that will be on the plate.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And these are egg roll. Is this what this is?
Yeah. So what I'm going to be using is egg roll wrappers. I really love the texture of the egg roll wrappers. It's really silky. You could use fresh pasta if you wanted to make that yourself. If you were gluten-free, you could either make a gluten-free lasagna sheet, which would work fairly well as well. I do particularly love these egg roll wrappers because they turn translucent and I just love the texture and they're really easy to buy pretty much anywhere.
Well, let's see how you do it.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about some of the ingredients. I think nothing screams spring more than fava beans. And, this is the way that the fava bean grows, and then we shuck them. And then you blanch these, and this is part of the filling. Meyer lemons, which are definitely a sort of late winter, spring item. And this is a specialty lemon that has a little bit of a more of an orangey, citrusy type of twist to it. Goat cheese, of course. And then I also have some pea sprouts. If you couldn't find fava beans, you could substitute peas, even frozen peas in the supermarket. And then, we're really lucky here in Napa Valley that we can grow anything almost all the time. I could walk out into the vineyard right now and find some fava bean growing and just pick some of the shoots from that too. So if you're lucky that way, by all means. And then the last ingredients that we have here are some wild mushrooms. Here are some cultivated types, which you can buy in the supermarket very easily. If you're a forager like me, you could also go out and find a wonderful variety of edible mushrooms. And so if you can't, if you're not a forager, just go buy the cultivated kinds, and the button mushrooms would be fine just as well. And then the last thing we have here is a hazelnut gremolata, and a gremolata is traditionally a lemon, parsley, olive oil topping that would go on top of something like ossobuco. And I've added some hazelnuts to it because I love the toastiness aspect that it gives, and I think it pairs really well with the dish. Our sauce is going to be made from some of our fall and winter stored vegetables. So I've got apple and pear, and I love that with this particular pairing with the Sauvignon Blanc. I think it goes great. And so let me just get that sauce going. I have some of this wonderful Sauvignon Blanc, which I'm going to use, and I've pureed the apple and the pear with some of the Sauvignon Blanc. And then what we're going to do is we're going to turn that on, and we're going to reduce that a little bit, and we're going to make a butter sauce with that. So while this is reducing, I've got my water boiling over here. I'm going to make the raviolo. It's really pretty simple. So what I have here are some cookie cutters. So if you didn't have these, you could, of course, cut them by hand or make them square. We were talking about how originally the ravioli was a square when they first were invented. And so what I'm going to do here is take one of my sheets of the egg roll wrapper, okay? And then in order to make the right shape here, I'm going to take a smaller version of the cutter, and I'm going to put it the non-sharp side down. And then in here, what I have is our filling, which is goat cheese, fava bean, some Parmesan, as well as some lemon zest and some sauteed pea shoots. You could put whatever filling you like in there, but I definitely think that the goat cheese is going to be key to this dish because it pairs so well with Sauvignon Blanc. And then we're going to take an egg yolk, just the yolk, and I've reserved the white over here so that I can use that as an egg wash to secure the raviolo. And I'm going to put that right in the center. Okay. So while that is going on, I'm going to take another sheet of the egg roll wrapper, and I'm going to brush it with the egg white. And this is going to help secure the raviolo. Okay, make sure you put just enough that it will secure, but not too much that it's going to slip slide around too much. And then I'm going to take this cutter off. I'm going to lay this egg washed wrapper right on top, and just be careful not to press too hard or bust open that yolk over there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another cutter, and I'm going to just gently shape the raviolo filling so that it's really nice and round. Okay. And then I'm just going to use my fingers here and do a little press. You could also use the bottom here and do a little press to help secure it. And then one large cutter is going to be the final shape, and we want to make sure we line that up so that it is right in the center. And then you cut this away. You could use this for something else if you like. You could use it as a pasta dish, or some people like to fry them, and you can make your favorite fried egg roll skin, which I know is really popular. And then one thing we really want to do here is secure the edges. You could use a fork if you wanted. I'm just going to use my fingers just to make sure that the edges are really nice and tight over here. Okay. All right. So I have a floured tray here. I've got some flour over here. You could use semolina flour if you wanted to. I just have some AP flour, all-purpose flour. Again, just make sure these are really nice and secure. And you could make these ahead of time and store them in the fridge. I would maybe not do it more than a few hours ahead before you're getting ready to cook. And then I have my water. We don't want it to be boiling like crazy. And I'm going to add my raviolo to that. Let me grab my spoon over here and get this other one there into the water. Okay. And then my water has come a little bit too low in temperature, so I'm going to cover it with my foil and make sure it comes back up to a boil, just gentle boil there. And while that's happening, we'll finish our sauce.
You know, Chef, what I love you've done
Yeah.
here is you've really taken some of the classic components of Sauvignon Blanc, the green apple and really the citrus flavors and incorporated it. And yet even things like the hazelnut, which you have in the Gremolata, which I think comes a little bit from the oak aging. So really it's a matter of kind of mirroring those components in the wine, a little bit in the dish, isn't it?
For sure. And I've also taken those mushrooms and I've sauteed those with a little bit of thyme. And so there's a little bit of that herbaceousness as well. I've got some fava beans in there, and I've also got my pea shoots. So I'm just going to make sure here that my raviolo isn't sticking to the bottom. Okay, good to go there. And then let's finish up our sauce. So when we make this beurre blanc sauce, we want to make sure that the temperature, once the wine is reduced, is very, very low. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding a little bit of cold butter. And it's important that the butter be cold because this is an emulsion sauce. And if the butter is too hot, it's just going to break and it's going to turn into a separated butter sauce. So very, very low temperature. And you want to stir this around. So this sauce shouldn't take too long to make. Your raviolo is going to take about 3 minutes or so to cook. And then I've already have my mushroom prepared. Now, of course, if you wanted the sauce to be a little bit more acidic, add less butter. If you like the really rich, creamy butter flavor, add more butter. This is called a beurre blanc white butter sauce. Let me just check on my raviolo over here. Okay, good to go.
And that butter sauce, again, picking up on the richness of the dish, isn't it? And the richness of the wine.
And this sauce, you can't really make this too far ahead of time because it doesn't hold very well. So this is sort of your last thing that you're going to do when you're getting this dish ready to go. And then just to add a little bit of a citrus brightness to it, rather than just the wine acidity, I'm going to use a little bit of Meyer lemon juice. And stir that around. And then our dish is ready to be plated. Just check on our raviolo. Awesome. All right, so here I've got a really nice plate. And what I'm going to do is take a generous portion of my sauce. And I'm going to put that in the center here. Now you could use any plate you want. Now this is a single serving raviolo, unless you have a really hearty appetite, which sometimes we can do here in Napa Valley. I'm going to make a little bed for that raviolo. And then I have here a skimmer. You could use a slotted spoon. That would work really well as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the raviolo out. I want to drain it a little bit. I don't want any water to make my sauce watery or loosen it up any more than it already is. And I'm going to add that raviolo right in the center, right there. And then I'm going to take some of my wild mushrooms here, and I'm going to put them around the side. What I have here are some hen of the woods, some oyster mushrooms, some trumpet mushroom. Of course, any mushrooms that you like would be great. And if you want to omit the mushrooms altogether, you can do that too. I don't want to cover up that beautiful raviolo, but I want to make sure I have just enough of the fava beans and the ravioli all around. Okay. And I have also this hazelnut gremolata. This has a little bit of texture to it as well. So the hazelnuts give it a little bit of a crunch, and it's got some good olive oil. And here in Napa Valley, we're blessed with all the wonderful olive oil makers that we have. We have a lot of wineries that make olive oil as well. And it also has some brown butter. And so this acts a little bit as a richness, a brightness, a textural component. Okay. And then lastly, I'm going to put some pea shoots over the top, just a few, just for garnish. They give this fresh aspect to the dish. And they're nice and bright and lively. And if you couldn't find these, of course, you could omit them or even use some baby arugula leaves or baby spinach leaves, something like that. And I think for the Sauvignon Blanc, this is an awesome pairing.
It's beautiful. You know, I know it's going to taste as beautiful as it looks. Chef,
Yeah.
Beautiful job. That is just a piece of art. But we
Thanks.
can actually make this a little red wine friendly too, can't
We
we?
can. So the red wine has aspects of it that are very umami rich and savory in a very different way. And so I think nothing screams spring more than lamb. And so I have here a couple of roasted lamb chops. And then what I also have here are some oil cured olives that have been pitted and halved. And they'll add a little saltiness, definitely have a rich umami flavor to them. The lamb is gamey, also adds a little umami, so that goes great with your aged red Cabernet. And there you have it.
Yeah. That is a triumph as a matter of fact.
Thank you, Bob.
Cheers, Chef. That was
Enjoy.
beautiful. And again, as I mentioned earlier, this recipe is available on the Alpha Omega website. And it's really an incredible dish. So I think have fun doing this, have fun sharing it with it. And again, thanks again, Chef.
My pleasure.
Back to you, Barrett.
Wow, salivating. I mean, I just need to turn around and take a look at that. Holy monkeys, that is incredible. Thank you, Chef Rebecca. Master Sommelier Bob Bath. That sounds like an absolutely amazing pairing. And I love how you tied that in with the next wine that we're going to taste and enjoy today. We did have some guests that actually put this dish together, Bob. Henry and his wife, Lois, made the recipe just as Chef Rebecca described. And they loved it. Great pairing instructions. The pairings were spot on. And from the perspective of Henry's, it was easy-ish to make. So we can all appreciate that. And again, for those of you that are salivating like I am and want to test out this recipe, go to our website, aawinery.com, and it's in our wine club section for the entire recipe. And I believe we also emailed it to you, a link to the recipe as well. There's a video demonstration that they can see online as well. I mean, it's so nice when great wines are paired beautifully with great foods and just the dance between food and wine. Thank you so much, Bob Bath. Thank you so much, Rebecca Peizer, for that. Incredible. It was tough for our guests. They were salivating in the chat box. The Madonnas said something funny. They said, making this is beyond the reach of my stretch goals, but it looks amazing. Can we overnight a couple of the raviolos to them? Could we put a couple raviolos in? I mean, they're probably going to want to get some of these wines after our tasting. So I'm going to go ahead and say that that's probably not possible, but love that. And what an amazing pairing. Looks beautiful. And hopefully I can get in and taste some of that as well. We've got another great wine to share with you all today, but first we have to announce the winner from Trivia 1, which a lot of people are inquiring about. And let's go to our vintners, Robin and Michelle Baggett, to get the answer of trivia question number 1, because not a lot of people got that right off the bat.
Barrett, well, we might want to ask Henrik if I actually had it right. We have the answer as fruit set. Henrik, I hope you agree.
Well, if I may throw in a little bit prior to fruit set, we do have some leaves coming out. So, but I'll go with your fruit set, and not to turn this into a very educational segment, but what's fascinating for me is when you're out in the vineyards, when you're looking at these vines in hibernation, when you're looking at the buds breaking, I mean, inside those buds, minuscule size is actually the cluster or clusters in plural, that we're going to use this year. Those buds were set last year. So it's always, it's humbling for me when I walk in a vineyard at this time of year in the spring, when you see everything popping back into growth, that fruit set that I am going to work with this year is actually set last year. So, but
now everybody loses.
No winner. We'll take that 2014 Magnum of Cabernet Sauvignon.
I will
Yeah,
say,
but you couldn't seed last year until this year, so I think we're okay.
So the answer for this trivia question, my friends, is fruit set. And the winner for that Magnum of 2014 Cabernet Sauvignon is Gwen. Gwen, congratulations on winning trivia question number 1. We will send you a Magnum big old bottle, party bottle of the 2014 Cabernet. And just real quick, Henry posted a picture in the chat here of the dish that he and his wife Lois put together, and the raviolo, and that is awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Henry. And just a kind of a reminder to you all, if you do participate in any of our food pairings and put together a dish, take pictures, share them on Instagram and Facebook. We would love to see them. Tag Alpha Omega. Really enjoy seeing the creations that you all put together and pair it with our delicious wines. So got another great wine to share with you, a wine that I'm incredibly excited about, a library selection of our 2014 Cabernet Sauvignon. Robin does have another trivia number 2. Robin, what do we have? Robin and Michelle.
Well, again, Michelle was the leader on this, and we haven't checked with Henrik, but I think we have this one right.
So give the answer.
I'm not giving the answer. And guess what? What happens after fruit set? What's next?
And Henrik will give the answer later.
What happens after fruit set? All right. They came out quick on that one. They came out quick. We will get to the winner here shortly, but I think I already know who won that one.
Who?
It looks like, so what it looks, I mean, the answer is already in, and we have the winner here. Robin, let's go after it right now. What is
I'm a little gun shy. Henrik? Tell me it's Veration. It's Veration, right?
If we did have to come up with something, I would probably say after fruit set, it's Veration. But
Yeah.
I do want to throw out there that fruit set and Veration, we have the berry development, and there's a lot of elements in there. That's something called seed hardening, and it's also the way you can check on the berries the amount of seeds that you have inside, and that kind of gives an indication of the personality of the vintage. But let's agree to the answer being
Veration. Love it. Great questions to really reflect the growing season. And we had someone quick on the draw here, Robin and Michelle. We had Mandy Bollinger, who I believe, Mandy has won a trivia question with us in the past, I believe, or has joined us in our virtual tastings. Mandy, congratulations. Magnum of 2014 Library Series Cabernet Sauvignon coming your way. Speaking of
Barrett, it's wonderful. You know, she's just building her wine cellar through Wine Club virtual tastings.
Well,
so if you want to build your cellar, You just joined the wine club virtual tastings.
Well, I understand Mandy she was a past champion of Jeopardy way back in the Alex Trebek days. I remember seeing her on TV.
Yeah, she's got that quick thumb on the button there. She's like, "Dun." Love it. Awesome. Congrats, Mandy, on that big old bottle of 2014 Cabernet Sauvignon. Speaking of the Cabernet Sauvignon from the 14 vintage, very, very excited, gentlemen, about this wine. Library selection that Alpha Omega thought, hey, it might be fun to incorporate a library selection of Cabernet Sauvignon into our wine club for March. So all of you wine club members with us that were lucky to secure some of this, congratulations. Excited to taste and talk about this wine, and we do have some available still for our guests joining in. Henrik and Bob, let's move on to this Cabernet Sauvignon.
Well, first of all, Barrett, I think you said it too, and it's a library selection. A lot of wineries simply don't have library selections. They sell all their wine out and keep only a little bit on hand. So to me, offering something like this is not only unique, but this is kind of really what it's all about. Cabernet Sauvignon and ageability. And the fact is that most of the time I talked about Cabernet Sauvignon, they'll say, well, try it from 7 to 10 years. Well, guess what? We're having it at 7 years. And I think that's the beauty of it, is you get to see that transformation. This is the beauty of Cabernet Sauvignon, probably one of the most ageable wines or varieties on the planet. What happens? The fruit is actually going to be a little less prominent. So as a wine ages, in other words, that fruit kind of steps a little bit into the background, but what comes into the foreground is more of the non-fruit characteristics. When you smell this wine, you'll be smelling things like cocoa and things like, say, even coffee. You'll be smelling some dark earth. You'll be smelling, really, to me, even a little bit of molasses and a little bit of fig. In other words, some of these non-fruit characteristics now get a chance to really kind of complement those fruit flavors. And really, to me, that's the complexity of aging a wine. That's part of what you gain. And at the same time, the tannins are going to really subside just a little bit, and the wine is becoming into greater balance. And I think that's the beauty of it. But even when I taste this wine, Henrik, this wine still got some time left on it.
Oh, for sure. And I think you are hitting a key word that I use quite a bit, and that's balance. I think for me, balance in a wine is really to truly understand whether you or what time you pick the grapes during fermentation, the balance that goes on during the alcoholic fermentation, or even during the malolactic fermentation. All those things is all about balance in a wine. There's been numerous discussions about high alcohol versus low alcohol. It was even a mantra. There was a organization over here in Pursuit of Balance that said we should not make high alcohol wines. I beg to differ. For me, it's always about balance in a wine. So it doesn't necessarily tie into whether it's high alcohol, low alcohol, different varietals, and so on. But I think for me, just to your point, Bob, about having access to aged wines, that is something that is pretty unique for Napa. When I came to the Valley 21 years ago, there was one winery where I knew that I could go in and buy old wineries. And that's actually our neighbor, Beaulieu Vineyards. You could get wines back dating from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. I spent quite a few of my own bucks on that account because I wanted to educate myself on wine and how they develop over time. That being said, I think the style that we have here in a 2014 Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa exactly explains the vintage, how wines develops in Napa with the winemaking techniques we did at that time. So it's a privilege for me to be able to taste something that has aged this long, and it's coming out of our own stock. So we know that it's been perfectly cellared at 55 degrees in optimal conditions. But to your point, Bob, again, it's wine that gets aged. It's not for everybody. I have to admit that sometimes you're either intrigued by this youthfulness of a wine that just is up in your face. It's young, it's fresh, it's vibrant. And then some, when you pull them out of your cellar after, say, 7 years like this one, they have just mellowed down to a completely different personality of the wine. And I think that's for me very fascinating, that you can have both elements of those in a Napa Valley wine. But then again, I'm not an expert of tasting wine. Bob, you are.
Well, thank you, Henrik. And I think part of enjoying a wine like this is first of all, how it's being served. And I think that's so important. You see, we've got a much larger glass here. You really want to capture, and really in some ways, this glass is acting like a mini decanter, if you think about it, in terms of really letting that wine kind of aerate. And I think that's really important. But a couple of things that Henrik mentioned, first of all, provenance. In other words, where this wine came from, particularly older wines, you really don't know sometimes where they've been stored. And if they haven't been stored properly, they're probably going to age a little faster than they really should. Second of all, this wine, do you need to decant it ahead of time? You know, for me, this wine, I could safely decant this wine maybe an hour or two before I serve it. So just the fact that 7 years old doesn't mean I still don't decant it, just means it'll be ready a little bit faster. And I think that the main thing is really when you're enjoying it, it's really going to have that experience. It's going to get that much better. So you can enjoy it over several hours at a time. And I think that's the beauty of wines like this, is that it really has that ability to age. Now, sediment-wise, particularly with older wines, sometimes people say, well, what about decanting it for sediment purposes? This wine isn't throwing a lot of sediment yet, but over time, you might want to do that just simply to remove some of that sediment, some of that tannin, some of the other components of the wine that have broken down literally into sediment in the wine. So really for older wines, maybe over 10 years, you'll start to see that a little bit more. But right now, you just want to get it in your glass and you want to enjoy it. And I think I love this because there isn't this magical transformation like Henrik was mentioning. These wines start out in balance and they just get that much better. And I think we're fortunate in the Napa Valley that we really have wines that taste really good young. We have wines that taste really good old. Not a lot of regions have that ability to produce wines that have that approachability and that quality level from beginning to end.
Well said. Balance is a word, Bob, that not only you mentioned, but a lot of our guests are mentioning as well when describing this 2014. There's a velvety and kind of a silkiness to this Cabernet Sauvignon that a lot of our guests are getting, and I'm getting as well. That is absolutely delicious. And really, I think you can only get that with wines that have laid down properly in the cellar. We've got some guests on here that are looking forward to pairing this with some steaks tonight. We've got a guest that's going to have some New York strips on the grill. Pair that with the 2014 Cabernet Sauvignon. Henrik, we had a question here from one of our guests about vineyards and the source. The different vineyards we sourced for this 2014. Obviously, Alpha Omega's philosophy really is enjoying the diversity and the terroir of all of Napa Valley. With specific to this 2014 Cabernet Sauvignon, where are we looking at as far as regions and vineyard sourcing?
Well, then I have to look into my technical notes. I must admit that from the get-go, I do not know exactly the sources on this vintage. That being said, to your point, Barrett, we are always looking at diversifying our wines. So when it comes into our core or skewer wines of Cabernet Sauvignon or proprietary red wines, those will be a combination of pretty much all the AVAs, and there's 16 of those in Napa. It will be a blend of all those to kind of represent the vintage more than say the winery that it's coming from. And I think that's something that is near and dear to me when I'm going through fermentation and when I taste the different wines or lots that we're bringing in. I want that signature of that single block to shine through. I don't want to be a winemaker that comes in with a thumbprint and says, this will taste like Alpha Omega, whether it's coming from hillside, mountains, or valley floor fruit. I think you need to, again, with the theme for today of Mother Nature and land, we need to let those blocks or those fruit characteristics shine through. So we try to be respectful of Mother Nature. In 2014, as a general thing, that vintage was, I compare it a little bit to 2012, which was a very, very expressive vintage. However, there was a certain level of tannins 2014 that we simply needed to mellow down a little bit. And it's for no reason that we are deciding to share it with our wine club this year, as well as our, I believe, 2015 Cabernet Sauvignon a little bit later this year. So we found that the right balance and the right time to enjoy this wine was actually this year. So so it's all about, of course, personal perception, personal preference in a wine. But I think this shows a great example of how Napa can develop into something deeply, deeply complex. My past, as a few of you will know, was Bordeaux. And I think we always have a tendency to put Bordeaux up on a pedestal and saying that's the best of the best. I beg to differ. When I sit down with Bob and we taste some old vintages dating back, we're blown away by the complexity and the quality that is coming out of Napa Valley and did decades ago.
You know, Henrik, I think you bring up a good point too, talking about the vintage, and particularly 2014, we're right in the middle of a drought period during that time. And I think it's important to kind of recognize the fact that there's not a huge difference between vintages in California, particularly Napa Valley. That being said, some are probably exceptional. We've talked about vintages like 2018, but most of these wines are going to age pretty well because we have that consistency of weather and that consistency of winemaking. I think is really important. When you look at this wine too, and one of the sources of it that I was noting was really the Sacre vineyard. And I think, Henrik, you can talk about that there in a moment, but it's one I think it's kind of coming back to the portfolio. But that classic combination of valley floor, hillside, and mountain fruit is evident in this wine. And I think that's a real signature along with that barrel fermentation that to me is really a recipe, so to speak, that really hasn't changed that much.
You mentioned the no word for me. That was recipe. So there is, of course, no recipe. We always adapt to what's on hand. But I do get what you're hinting at, Bob, and that's a signature style of Alpha Omega. And that's probably something that where we stand a little bit above or stand out from the rest of the crowd in Napa. We're not shy of tannins in our wines. We want to build that structure into the wines because we know that over time, tannins, fruit, it will all mend together in a beautiful, complex blend. And I think that's again, that will show the perhaps that little signature of a winemaker that we don't necessarily need to have a wine that is ready for consumption from day one, but also something that can stand the test of time and will actually develop and create more nuances over time. So it's a privilege for me. I don't rarely get accessibility into our library, but opening in 2014, that's a great treat on a beautiful Saturday.
Absolutely.
And I think the last thing too is the pairing. And I kind of like the New York strip pairing because it's really, again, a pairing to me that really kind of highlights the wine. Not that the steak isn't going to be great, but remember, as these wines get older, perhaps we let them take more of the center stage. Maybe we kind of dial back a little bit on the food. Maybe we create complexity in the food, but now we've got a wine with complexity. We want to see that. So in many cases, maybe the simpler the dish, I think maybe even the better the wine's going to show. And then cheeses, of course, you're gonna look for harder cheeses, maybe a little bit of saltiness there to really kind of bring out the flavors of this wine. And that saltiness actually gonna tone down a little bit of those tannins that are left and really bring it out. So this is the kind of wine that's great just with cheese, where you can really admire and kind of think back on when you had this wine the last time. And that's what it is for me, is that these wines become like good friends and you like revisiting them and just kind of sharing the experiences you have with them over the years.
Well said. And just to let you know, we've got a guest on here, Bob. D&A is the name, said that the Cabernet and the Mahone pairing that you put together is epic. So to your point on the cheese and the wine pairing, Henrik.
I just wanted to top Bob's comment up about the food and wine pairing, because I think key for me will always be, I'm, of course, needless to say, I'm super proud of crafting some of these wines, but I also understand my past was actually in the chef business. So when Chef Rebecca puts together something that is on the surface looks so simple and so elegant, but when it blends so beautifully with the wine, I think it's a very good combination of food not overshadowing wine and wine not overshadowing food. It's a perfect match. And kudos to Chef Rebecca. I wish you could come and cook lunch for me every day.
That would be awesome. I would love that. Chef Rebecca, that pairing was absolutely incredible. It looks like,
Garrett.
yes, Robin, Michelle.
So we thought we'd be fun again, and we were in the garage unpacking boxes this morning, and I just did a random grab of a Cabernet to pair with the 14 to do back and forth fun. And it's the 13, which is the year that Henrik decided to leave us and go do his own fun projects. And Henrik, your 2013 is absolutely fabulous. We're enjoying it tremendously. Thank you. But it's fun that we pulled something out that had your fingerprints on it, and it is stunning. The 14 is stunning, but we're doing a 13 and 14 pairing today for fun. I highly recommend you guys always pull out something out of your cellar to play with. Two bottles of wine is not enough for us on a Saturday.
Well, Henrik found his way back to.
He's back.
He's back.
He found his way back, and we're grateful that he did.
I was never gone.
You said he was never gone.
You were never gone.
We left the yellow brick road. Oh, our dog.
Who let the dogs out?
Hey, while we have you two right now, I kind of want to ask a question to you. We had a lot of guests inquiring about vineyards, and it really got me thinking about just the philosophy of Alpha Omega, not only from the very beginning, but kind of where we're going right now with adding another tier in our single AVA series wines, adding a few different brand new single vineyard Cabernet Sauvignons for the 2019 vintage. It seems like, Robin and Michelle, you guys just love exploring Napa Valley and love the terroir and the diversity in terroir in this area. Tell us your philosophy on that as vintners.
No, we're always looking to improve, and kudos to Henrik and Bob and our efforts to do that, and our new consulting winemaker, Andy Erickson. I'm so pleased to be having him. I mean, we got a team that's out there, and it's probably, I don't think it's weekly, but every other week they come up with a nugget. And I say that not only for us, but for all of you in years to come. It's just going to keep getting better and better and better. I mean, their effort to improve and make the wines better and come up with, well, the Tinch Vineyard, and you go, where's that? Oh, it's right next to Screaming Eagle. Now we're starting to do,
Romane de Conte. The one thing that I really love about Henrik is he's kind of like a dog that hunts truffles.
There we go.
He can sniff out the best of the best vineyards in Napa Valley. Henrik, you're so amazing. And also he's very charming, and he has great relationships all throughout the valley. So to go into a meeting with Henrik and to say, hey, can we farm, from your beautiful vineyards? And they're going, well, there's a waiting list. That kind of happened with Andy Beckstoffer initially for us in 2006. And just by virtue of good heart, good nature, good work, good ethics, integrity in the wine, we get bumped up the list, and we're so blessed and pleased to have these relationships with these wonderful vineyards. But Henrik, you are a truffle hunter, and I love your nose. And Andy Erickson is also such a compliment to you, because Andy has great relationships, and Andy also, by virtue of being a great winemaker, knows where to find these great vineyards. And he and Henrik are just like taking Napa by storm. We're just so blessed. Thank you, Henrik. Thank you so much.
Since we're close to Easter, it was last weekend. We believe in not putting all our eggs in one basket, and that comes from when I started in this business. We planted a huge vineyard down in San Luis Obispo area, 750 acres. Well, you got to take your grapes from there, I mean, so we were not diversified. And then, so if something happens to that vineyard, like a rain comes through, hailstorm,
Or a fire.
fire or for whatever. And thankfully, this idea of diversification and having, I think, Henrik, you probably right. We have 14 of the 16 appellations and that we source grapes from, something like that. I don't know if we got 15 yet, but it's the right thing to do, and it gives us just all types of flexibility to make just great wine.
Well, and the diversity of terroirs. So
Yeah.
I highly recommend if you can take the Napa Valley Rocks program, where you learn about all the terroirs, all the 16 sub-AVAs of Napa Valley. It's a really incredible experience because you can come to the winery. Maybe we could set this up for our wine club, where you can taste all of these various AVAs and understand the minerality, the composition of the soil, the geology, the winds, the climate, the sun, the fog. I mean, it's just incredible.
Well, more to the point on having the diversity, the 2020 fires caused a lot of problems for a lot of people, but our diversity is going to allow us to have a great vintage, I think. Henrik, do you agree? I don't want to put, but he's been telling me they're tasting pretty good, and we got quite a bit.
Are you asking Henrik a question?
I asked Henrik a question.
And I'll happily answer, Robin. No, definitely. It's a privilege to have the ability to source from almost any of the 16 different sub-appellations in Napa. That it was kind of a mantra that we set out with when we started Alpha Omega back in 2006. It was a little bit of an insurance policy as a winemaker that if something maybe goes wrong on, say, the fruit set of Merlot from Spring Mountain, then you damn well better have a backup from Merlot from Oak Knoll. So it was definitely a matter of spreading the risk. But then as we came to work with lots of these heritage vineyards in Napa, we realized that each of them brought something unique to the blending plate, and from there on, it's the rest is history. So we've seen what all these different sides can bring, and it's a privilege to be able to craft these wines for Alpha Omega. And when I say that, I do have to pay deep respect to the rest of the team, because this is not just about me. It's a team effort. We have a very dedicated associate winemaker. We have a gifted assistant winemaker, and then down the line, cellar master, and not, of course, perhaps biggest of all, not to forget our vineyard manager, Howell, who does an amazing job of providing me with grapes. So it's a matter of taking what Mother Nature gives you, blending some dedicated efforts into it, and then that's what ends up on the crush pad, and that's what I have to work with, or we have to work with, and hopefully it's all this passion transitions down into something that is enjoyable in bottle.
Mission accomplished, Henrik and Robin and Michelle. Truly, I mean, thank you for all that information. And Robin and Michelle, I mean, it all starts at the top, and your guys' passion and just love for Napa Valley. You really can taste it in both of these wines and all of our wines. So cheers to you two. Cheers to our winemaking team and our vineyard management team. Really, it all is all about team and family here at Alpha Omega. Just a couple things to mention to you all before I send it back to our vintners, Robin and Michelle, to send us off on our Saturday here today. Again, we've been kind of downgraded into the orange tier here in Napa County, which we're so excited about. This means that we are able to host private tasting indoors, which is crucial for us. I mean, we love the private tasting experience at Alpha Omega. The hospitality here certainly is some of the best experiences in Napa Valley. We want to match that hospitality with the quality of our wine. So we will be going indoor for private tastings. Obviously, our patio and our terrace is almost perfectly created for these COVID times. And we would love to host you all out here in Napa Valley and at Alpha Omega sometime soon. There are a lot of guests that are excited and antsy to get out here. That's the reality. So reach out to our concierge department to set up a tasting reservation with us. Keep in mind, there's a lot of people that want to come and visit Napa right now. The 18 and the 19 vintage are tasting delicious. So make sure you plan ahead for your trip. Let our concierge department know, and we will certainly set you guys up. Another thing to remind you, these two wines that we tasted today they're special wines. The 1155 Sauvignon Blanc flies. That wine does not last long. And if I had a nickel for how many people asked me after it's sold out, hey, can you find me some? Can you get me some? And unfortunately, we have to say no, because it's just when it goes, it goes. Stock up on that. And this 2014 Cabernet Sauvignon is drinking delicious right now. What we're going to do is we're going to send you all a follow-up email with a purchase opportunity for these two wines specific for this group as a little thank you for joining us today. So either reply to that email or check in with one of our brand ambassadors on securing some of these wines, the 1155 Sauvignon Blanc and the 2014 Cabernet Sauvignon. One last thing to remind you guys, we're going to keep going virtual even as things open up and we really start to get rocking and rolling at Alpha Omega. We're going to keep going virtual, and we've got a special event for May, and this is hitting Robin Baggett right in the heartstrings right here. And Robin, I mean, I'm going to send it to you guys to close out, but let's talk about the May virtual tasting, because this is really your sweet spot.
Well, let's put it this way. It's been a long time since I've had a chance to barbecue. I mean, we got shut down last March and we haven't done much there. So we're looking forward to that. I can't wait. And
What is the month of May, Robin?
it's barbecue month.
It's
So-
National Barbecue Month. And what
So,
better month than May to
as-
do this
as
event?
say, we're
It's
gonna-
also my birthday month.
Oh, that's true. I forgot. Oh, thanks for reminding me. But we need to get her done. I mean, we're gonna get her done. And we're gonna do a lot of barbecue, but I'm gonna leave it and then turn it over to Michelle. But one thing that I love about this winery is the team we have. We mentioned our vineyard team, our winemaking team, and we haven't talked about our hospitality team, but it's just incredible. It's such a pleasure to work with all these people. And being a team player, baseball, it's the team sport. It's not tennis or golf. It's a team sport, and we are a team sport, and we're looking to just have besides when you come to work every day, you want to have a good time. And I think our people do. I certainly do. And thank you for being part of our team. You're part of our team too. You're part of our family. So thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. I
have a special announcement before you all close down, because the date has changed, which is really important.
Okay, go ahead.
Because Robin had a conflict. So originally the May barbecue, celebrating National Barbecue Month, was on Saturday, May 15th. We have moved it to Sunday, May the 16th. We're hoping that this might actually become a thing. Growing up in the South, after church, we'd always get together and we would have an amazing midday fun experience. It's going to be at 3:00. We're doing these other virtual tastings that are not wine club. We're trying them out at 3:00 to give the East Coast people an opportunity to do the 3 that goes into dinner, and to give you an opportunity to get your house decorated before 12:00. So you don't have to get up so early. We're going to start it at 3:00. And we are focusing the barbecue this last year. Remember, it was oak, charcoal, or pellets. So we talked about 3 different types of fuels. We're going to explore, and Master Sommelier Bob Bath is on this right now, the best sauces from the best states that pair with the wines. And so we're going to give you the opportunity to, Robin's got some recipes he's going to put up, and you're going to smoke some meats, and then you're going to get your sauces, and you're going to taste these sauces, and then we're going to have a competition. Is it Arkansas, Alabama, Tennessee? We're only going to choose 3.
North Carolina.
We might do 6. We might do 2 sauces per wine.
No,
We've got Georgia's not even on the top 15 list. I'm just really sad about that, but we're going to have this flavorful opportunity to smoke and talk about the sauces, the rubs, and the styles of smoking from various states in the United States. So it'll be a lot of fun.
One thing you'll enjoy, because I love Chef Rebecca. I mean, but it's a little complicated. Trust me, this is simple. It's got 3 steps. We'll get her done. Simple. Keep it simple, stupid, right? Kiss.
Love it. So that's exciting. Our next virtual tasting, we're going big, barbecue month in May. And what a better way to spend a Sunday afternoon in May. And we're going to have that at 3 p.m. Pacific. We've moved some of our virtual tastings a little later in the afternoon. So join us in that barbecue virtual tasting. Very excited to see. Robin, you didn't mention Kansas City, where I was born. I'm a little hurt by that. So my grudge is already
wait. It was my wife trying to say where barbecue comes from. I agree with you. Kansas City's in the hunt.
Kansas City
Kansas
barbecue
City.
chef judge.
Well,
you took the class.
I'm a Kansas City Barbecue Society member. I'm a judge.
Oh, okay. We're good.
Oh, I love Kansas City.
Hey, everyone, go to our website, ayourwinery.com. Under events, you'll see the lineup of wines that we've put together for that event, and you can order your tasting package and sign up for that. We'll send them to you, but that's going to be Sunday, May 16th, 3 p.m. Pacific, May virtual tasting, National Barbecue Month, and we certainly hope you all can join us. I'd love to raise a glass to everyone that joined us today. Incredible virtual tasting. Robin and Michelle, thank you so much for joining us. Henrik Poulsen, our winemaker, Master Sommelier Bob Bath, and everyone, enjoy the rest of your day and the afternoon and enjoy these wines. Cheers.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.